gonna get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Someone's in the back seat! Tell me where you are, John!
Wolfman's got Nards!
Hi guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel. We're doing another video on Halloween H2O today. I know that I seem to defend this movie every month, rightfully so of course, but today we're going to be talking about how Halloween H2O just works. Compared to all the other films in the franchise, I feel like Halloween H2O works the best as a sequel, of course, not as an original movie, but I feel like it works best as a sequel to the original Halloween storyline. Now, we're not going to be discussing the likes of Chris Duran's portrayal as Michael Myers, even though I liked it. I know that people have problems with that. That's not what we're discussing today. We're not discussing the four masks that they used. I know that some people have a problem with that as well. That doesn't take anything away from the story itself, so let's not discuss that. And finally, we're not going to be discussing the Dawson's Creek feel to it, because yes, it is a late 90s movie. You can't remove that. It was made in the late 90s. Although there's no excuses, there is a perfect excuse because it is a late 90s teen slasher movie. So we're not going to discuss those sorts of things in this. We're really just discussing mostly the story of it and how it works best. It's set 20 years later. I think that's an ample and a perfect amount of years to set a sequel to Halloween 2. Now, I know that Halloween from 2018 was set 40 years later. That is a perfectly round number for a sequel to a horror movie, but you're running that fine line between it being not long enough or too long, and I think with Halloween 2018 it seems like it's been just too long for it to be a sequel to the original movie, or at least the 1978 events. When you look at Halloween H2O, it's only been 20 years, so it's not long enough for it to be too long to remember, but it's also just the right amount of time to remember what happened in 1978. So it is a direct sequel to Halloween 2 from 1981, but it's still the events of 1978 because Halloween 2 was obviously set in 1978. So 20 years I think is the sweet spot, the perfect amount of time. Obviously with Jamie Lee Curtis coming back as well as a bonus, but I think 20 years is just the perfect sweet spot. It scrapped the stupid stories in between. Now I know that we all love Jamie Lloyd from Halloween 4, and as much as her storyline was really good, they had to scrap that because that led on to the Curse, the Thorn storyline, and again I know there's fans of that storyline too, but I think it got too convoluted for all types of Halloween fans. There was too many stories going around within the Halloween films that it just got too convoluted to the point where if you wanted Jamie Lee Curtis to come back, we would have to scrap all that because you couldn't have Laurie Strode coming in with all of what was happening on it. So I think as much as some people love certain stories within the Halloween movies after Halloween 2, it was the best idea just to scrap all of that. The brother and sister aspect was probably the most believable part of why Michael Myers would be after Laurie after 20 years. If Halloween 2018 and the David Gordon Green trilogy taught us anything, it taught us that yes, we probably did need the brother and sister aspect on it, because why else would Michael be after this woman after 20 years, let alone 40 years? So the strange and crazy way they brought them together in Halloween 2018 just didn't work for me. I think the idea on paper of scrapping it and going back to the original where Michael wasn't related to Laurie sounded like a good idea at the time, but executing it made me think that the brother and sister aspect was the best idea. I know that John Carpenter wasn't a fan of it when they introduced it in Halloween 2, but for you, if you want to keep Laurie Strode and Michael Myers relevant to each other in a potential series, in a franchise, then there has to be more of a connection to them than just her surviving one night on Halloween. There has to be more to it than that. So I think by keeping that aspect in with Halloween H2O was the perfect decision, and thanks to David Gordon Green, to me, it made that decision all the better. We go back to basics on how Michael Myers stalks his victims. In the other Halloween films, Michael kills at random for no apparent reason, at least most of the time in the Halloween 4, 5, 6, etc. So he's this unstoppable killing machine in those movies, but we're going back to basics with this one. Halloween H2O is more like the original and Halloween 2, where he's killing for a reason. There's a motive behind what he's doing. He needs to get from A to B, and if anyone's in his way from A to B to C to D, etc., he will kill them because he sees them as being a threat and in his way in order to get his sister. It feels like he's on a mission this time. He's got a purpose. You see him lurking in the background like he did in the original movie, and he doesn't kill people straight away. Sometimes he doesn't kill people at all. So he makes conscious decisions in order to get to his sister, and that makes him even more scary, just like the original, because we know he's got a conscience. We know he's got a mind of his own, so everything he does, he's aware of what he's doing and he's aware of why he's doing it. I think that makes it scarier than just going out and killing a random bunch of people with no motive, because we know that if there's somebody walking across the street in a Halloween film, we know that they're dead and we're having fun with that. Whereas in the original and in H2O, he's got a reason for doing it. So if you're getting killed in the movie, the scary part is he knows he's doing it and he knows that he's planned his attack. That's scarier. And then when you look at the Halloween trilogy from David Gordon Green, you've got Halloween Kills, where he's going about killing everyone. And I know that he's got a reason for doing some of the things, but I think in Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, and even in 2018, he's killing people for the sake of it. He's killing people for the body count and the blood, guts and gore. Now, I love blood, guts and gore in horror films, but with Michael Myers, you don't need it. So as much as some of it was enjoyable in the David Gordon Green trilogy, a lot of it was unnecessary. So H2O was more of a back to basics Michael Myers. If we look at Laurie Strode, she was a believable character. She was a believable victim because she was a woman on the run. Not only did she leave Haddonfield, which was the perfect decision to make, she also changed her name and went into hiding. I know that people don't like Halloween H2O because it's set in California, but realistically, if you want Laurie Strode back as a character, she's not going to be living anywhere near Haddonfield, and most likely she would change her name, because in this storyline, Michael Myers' body was never found, so he's still out there. He could be dead, he could be alive, but she's not willing to take that risk, so she's left. She went across the country and changed her name. That's the most realistic Laurie Strode you can get. But not only that, she's a broken woman after 20 years, but she's not one of these Sarah Connor type David Gordon Green Laurie Strodes. She is a realistic Laurie Strode where she's drinking, she's got her own family, she comes from a broken home, she doesn't live with her husband anymore, her son doesn't have a dad anymore, he's still alive, but they don't live together. So she comes from that broken home, so she's still a broken woman after 20 years, and it's rubbing off onto John, her son, and her son can see the cracks and he doesn't like it. So I think Laurie Strode, even Jamie Lee Curtis, looks like she put more effort into her Laurie Strode in H2O than she did in this David Gordon Green trilogy. I know that she'll probably say at the moment that this is the best trilogy she's ever done in Halloween. It's because it's relevant at the time. She said the same thing with Halloween H2O. So overall, I personally think Laurie Strode had more fun doing this Laurie Strode in H2O, because this was 100% the most realistic Laurie Strode. Her arc comes full circle in this one, because after 20 years of running and hiding, she can no longer run anymore. She has to face Michael Myers, she has to make a stand, and she definitely makes a stand in H2O. Halloween H2O also gave us our very first final resolution in the Halloween franchise, with Laurie chopping off Michael's head. Now, it came out in 1998, so we have to ignore Halloween Resurrection because it didn't exist at the time. This was the final showdown between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. It was a popular movie, so obviously they had to make sequels, and that's fine. They want to make money, they can do that all they want. But this did give us a definitive ending at the time to Michael Myers by chopping his head off. There's no coming back from that. There was no mystique to it. Could he survive? Maybe, maybe not. Nope, he definitely died in this one. Even when you look at David Gordon Green's Halloween from 2018, as much as that's a good movie as a standalone movie, it still left a bit of ambiguity at the end of it. Could Michael have escaped? Probably, and if they made it a one and done movie, it would have been fine, but because they brought out Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, it makes the ending of 2018 redundant and typical of movies that leave the ending to the imagination. So at least with Halloween H2O, we got that resolution in 1998 at the time, and that was probably, and it still is, the best ending to any Halloween movie. Halloween H2O also came out at the boom of the late 90s teen slasher movies. Now, when you watch Halloween H2O today, I know that you've got a group of people that will watch it and go, oh, I don't like that because it's too 90s, it's too late 90s. Well, of course it is. It was set in the late 90s and it also was filmed in the late 90s, but it was also smartly written. I think it was smartly directed and smartly written, especially for the time, because when you look at Halloween films, even the newer ones,
Evil dies tonight!
the dialogue in it is not very smart and it's very dated, but when you watch Halloween H2O, you still have fun with the dialogue in the movie, and some very tense scenes, some emotional scenes, some very serious scenes throughout the film as well, when Laurie's talking to John about not moving on and John has to move on. That's very deep. You know, if you put something like that into a modern movie, it would work because the way it was written was just so smart. So when it comes to the way the movie looks, I know a lot of people have an issue with the way it looks, etc. But when you really sit back and watch it and listen to the story and the dialogue, it's the most realistic Halloween film since the original two movies. The film clocks in at just over 80 minutes without the credits at the end, so the pacing of this film was also perfect because we never really had a dull moment, and when we did have what would be considered a dull moment, it's a build-up of the ending of the film as well. So the pacing for Halloween H2O was perfect. I think seeing Michael Myers for the first time after 20 years in the story at the beginning of the film, killing a couple of people to get information about Laurie Strode, was a good beginning to the movie. And then just seeing Laurie Strode struggling throughout the rest of the film, showing us what type of person she is, leading it up to the showdown between Michael Myers, is great. I know that people think that we don't see Michael Myers a lot in the film, but you don't see Michael Myers a lot in the original movie. In the original, he's stalking, and then it's a build up to the end of the movie, and it's a similar structure with Halloween H2O. He's stalking Laurie until the very end of the movie where it's the showdown. And if you compare the original movie, maybe even ignore part 2, compare the original movie structure to Halloween H2O's structure, it's almost identical. So amongst other things guys, that is the main points as to why I think Halloween H2O just works, why Halloween H2O is the perfect sequel to the first two Halloween movies. And if you ignore all the rest, you can go to Halloween H2O and think, I'm satisfied, I don't need to see any more movies. Now that's obviously just me talking and it's my opinion, but I want you to tell me your opinion guys. What is the perfect Halloween sequel? What just works for you and why? As always, leave your comments down below, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.